just keep it pointed.
I did. I did kind of 3 questions.
I can give you a copy of it.
How's everyone doing? Thank you. Just wake up. Okay, so this is something that I started doing this year, and it's something you can roll into your classrooms tomorrow, or your university coach pass on to your departments. It's called PQ4R, and it's for kids with reading comprehension difficulties. Let me pass this out, and I'll explain kind of the rationale about why we're doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of extra copies. So, and there's also an article you're going to get called "Why Reading Makes Us More Human." So you can get one of these and read it too. So this is a strategy for students who come up to you and basically say, like, Mr. Riley, I read something and I just don't get it. Because reading is kind of a process that as adults we have internalized and we know how to do. So for a lot of kids, they don't really know what does it mean to comprehend something. I had a student last semester named Jasmine who, great writer, great reader, really intelligent, but she was overwhelmed by, like, when you handed her a piece of paper, it was like, what am I looking for? Is it for supporting details, main idea, themes? So what this really is, it's a purpose setting activity, and it lets kids kind of have a goal when they go into a topic. So it starts off with the preview. It lets kids, it teaches more of the process of reading. And the idea that when you read, you're not necessarily looking to find a main idea, it's more of like your main idea. It takes some of the pressure off. Here it says, the idea is a purpose setting. Students are overwhelmed by the idea of what I'm looking for. So like Jasmine, when she would read, we did the BRI for her reading index score last year, and her supporting details were basically non-existent because she was so freaked out by, like, what is this article about? She couldn't tell you where it took place, any character's name. She couldn't tell you, like, basic information that anyone should get out of it because she's so upset about, like, what am I trying to look for? So I discovered her strategy online and kind of molded it to fit my classroom. I do it with all my kids occasionally. It's just kind of like a reminder of what the process of reading is. But it's great for that kid that comes up to you on the side and says, like, hey, I don't get what I'm reading. So starting off initially is a text preview. So what you're going to get is this box here. You want to give the kids 2 to 3 minutes of just looking at the article or looking at the text. And they're looking for these big picture type of things. Like, what is this article about? Let's take like 2 minutes and just kind of skim the text and come up with, you know, words or phrases. You don't want complete sentences or even complete thoughts, but just like, what might this article be about? I mean, obviously from the title, reading is part of it. But it's getting you thinking about, like, what's going to come. It's like the previews before we do these kind of things. And just jot down 4 or 5 observations in that first box. If you have a reluctant kid, I tell them that they have to read the first and last line of the article to, like, at least get some kind of, like, this is what this is talking about. The title, first and last line, and then usually they'll go from there a little bit and start really analyzing what's going on. Obviously, since we're adults, we can do this. If a class, you have to model this. Like, the first one we do it all the way through together as a class. Like, I show them. It's like a think aloud, basically. Like, I think this, I think this. As the kids go on, you kind of pull the reins off and give them a little more autonomy. So what I really like about the strategy is it makes reading explicit. I mean, this is what, everything in this step is what you as an adult do when you read. Like, because we've over the years honed our skills and we just do this naturally. But kids, they don't. I mean, they, especially if they've never been taught or never been shown, or if they're not reading at home. You know, a lot of our kids, unfortunately, the 45 minutes in your room a day is all the reading that they're getting exposed to. So this has not become like a process to them. So the next box is purpose setting, where they're going to generate 3 or 4 questions that they hope this article answers to them. With the idea of like, your question might not be answered and that's totally okay. Like that's part of reading. No book, no article, no author is ever going to answer every question you have. For your really lowest performing kids, you want to do like what, when, why, and how questions. For kids that kind of, AKA, get it a little bit more, you can push them into more thematic questions. So like, you know, how does the idea of reading affect humanity? Or like, is reading, you know, you can push them into harder questions. For really struggling kids, it might be literally like, why do we read? Or like, how does reading make me better? Like for student Jasmine, we really stuck with these how, what, when, and where, why questions. So you want to come up with roughly 3 to 4 things that this article gives you, a purpose basically. Like what do you want to personally pull from this article? And make it explicit to the kid, like, hey, what Susan has and what Michael have are going to be different. Because what we're looking for as human beings in an article is going to be very different.
I was just thinking, like, about my own reading and thinking that sometimes I read things twice and I realize the first time I read, I'm trying to answer the how, what, where, and when, and then the second time I read, or the third, is usually if I'm trying to answer like the big, or trying to figure out what's the bigger theme here. And I think that's an explicit thing that the kids don't get, that rereading is the easiest.
Yeah,
most
it's like
effective
putting
thing.
your toe kind of in the pool and filling the water and then jumping in. And
Yeah.
And so like you've naturally acquired this process. Like you
Exactly.
do it internally. Like this is something that kids should eventually be. We say training wheels. This should be eventually going away because by the time they master this, they're doing every one of these steps internally in their minds. Which is kind of the part about that I like because it's really it's a process, but it's put in paper for you. The student I've done this with, it's been tremendous. Like she can now read an article and she can tell you like, oh, this is about Pompeii, which is in Italy, and there was a volcano and it killed this many people. Like because she's able to retain more of like the details because she's not so freaked out by like the meaning of it all.
Going through this with her, you said that's really.
Yeah. It's really. I mean, when I found this online, I was really looking for something that was like, hey, what's in the rationale made sense. Like, it takes some of the pressure off for our kids because our kids are under a lot of pressure. I mean, we're making them read for so many purposes now, supporting details, a main idea, and inferences, and like it's overwhelming to a third, fourth, fifth, even up to college level kid of like, what do you want from me? So this helps them kind of like almost de-escalate a little bit. So once you have your questions, obviously, you take Mr. Waycott's annotation strategies and you read the article and you attack it and you write it down. We should have enough time to like, not the whole thing, but let's take like 2 minutes and just read as much as we can and see if you get any of the stuff out of it that you're looking for. We'll talk about the relate box in a minute because the relate box is pretty interesting. You kind of just want your questions in the back of your mind, like if you come across a question you made for yourself, make a note, jot it down, like, oh, she answered that, or she almost answered my question, but she didn't quite get there. So let's assume we can fast forward a little bit and you've read the article. If you didn't finish it, this article is brilliant. I highly recommend like finishing it. It's really, her argument's basically that reading creates empathy and it makes us better humans because we can see viewpoints. The next box is kind of what I call like the teacher box. So it's the relay box. It's very open-ended, and this is where I highly encourage you to modify and differentiate. You can keep it as just a blank box, and kids can just write down just observations or thoughts. You can give them more purpose-driven questions. For this one, I did what's the article's main idea and make a connection to your life. But it's basically a chance for them to kind of spew out what's coming out of their head from their reading. What did they notice? What did they think about? Kind of to conceptualize and then put it on paper. I mean, you can really change this box up. Like, say you've got one kid who's just really struggling. You know, you could put who's the main character in this article. Or another kid, you could put like what is a theme that the author encourages the world to explore. You can really change these around for kids. So this is where your differentiation can really come in handy here. If you've got kids that are all over the place, like don't be afraid to make up a few different ones. You know, if you got a group of kids that are really reading at grade level and a group that are reading below, same article, but make the relate box more common for those kids that are above and beyond. You can use it for literary articles, you can use it for nonfiction, for fiction, for poetry. Really don't be afraid to play with that relay box and put what you want in there. That's my encouragement. I use it for fiction and nonfiction alike. So, and then the one I always leave some kind of form of too, they have to make a connection. Like, have you ever read a book? Yes. Okay, you can connect this article because you have also, the kids will fight you on this till you're blue in the face. This does not apply to my life. It's like, no, this is about air. In today's history, you breathe air, this relates to you, go. Like, don't let them off the hook, push them. Like, there is a connection to your life. Like, that is the whole, like, in my mind, the whole purpose of reading is to make a connection to your world. So they'll fight you, but fight back. Okay, the recite box. This is where you have to now go and answer your questions. And then of course they'll fight you on that, and they'll say, well, none of my questions were answered. Then they have to flip it and say like, okay, why? Why do you think the author chose not to answer your questions? Why was that not his or her priority? So they have to reflect back and try and answer their 3 questions. The 3 you made on the front, you now say like, oh yeah, she did tell me why reading makes us better, or she did tell us how it applies in my life. Or no, I wanted to know like how many books I should read a year, and she didn't tell me. They have to really dig into like why the author made the choices that they made. So they are comprehending the article. They don't know that they are. You're not making them say like, you know, how many. It's not right there type questions. It's more like a metacognitive, like what did you get out of this idea? And they have to do all 3. There's no like if your thing was not in the article, then you have to tell me why you think the author didn't see it the way you did it. Like you would have included this as the author. Why do you think he or she left it out? They have to rationalize their decisions. And then I mean, even with this can work with second graders. It really it's from all grade levels. Obviously, for high school, we push them a little bit more to get more out of their head and into the world of what's around them. And the last box is a discussion question. So if this article's homework and the PQ4R is tonight's homework, then tomorrow, what are you going to bring to discussion? Like, what are you going to ask? It could be a question for the class, for the author, for the teacher, but it's a chance to show that you've thought of this article in a way that you really want to make a connection beyond the article itself and bring something to the world. And like I said, I've used it. This isn't theoretical. Like I've seen it work with students. I've seen its impact. It really does have an effect. And it seems to be less overwhelming to kids because it's like you're going to occasionally not get your question answered, and that's okay. But then you ask them the other questions, the stuff you really want them to know, like what's the main idea, and they've got that because they're thinking so far beyond that level. So yeah, that's something you can do in your classroom, and I highly encourage it. I didn't put my email on the sheet, but I do have a evaluation for you. If you put your email on this, I will send you the template and the PowerPoint and this article all in a nice neat little file, and you have it all.
Nice.
So if you're interested in using this or want it, I will give it to you.
Okay,
Questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So you have the 3 questions that, these sound like they would be more content questions then? These 3 on the first page, right?
Yes.
And then the discussion question would be just like an observation or?
For the review box question, yeah, something that they want to bring to the class and talk about from the article. These questions are based off of their preview. So in your 2 to 3 minute little preview, what do you want this article to give you? It's really about purpose setting. It takes kids that are in that, oh my God, what am I looking for? Into like, I now have a reason to read this. I'm not looking for 5,000 things, I'm looking for like 1 or 2. And it works for, you know, the really smart kids that think they know it all, because you can push them with really high level questions and really high level author's purpose. Like, okay, smarty pants, you have this question, the author didn't include it. Why did she leave it out when we thought it was so vital for the content of the article? Any other questions or comments or concerns? Yes?
You make kids who, in that time period, you give them a knockout far enough into the article to ask questions that really have anything to do with the article?
Yeah, you're gonna get that, and those kids are gonna require a longer previewing session and a more in-depth. So you have to like do like a think aloud of the preview. Like, this is how I preview. Like, oh, I read the title and I notice it says reading in humans. I can infer this article is about like maybe reading can make us better. Then, well, what's mean to be a better human? So yeah, if you have a group of kids, I'll put them like in a group. The rest of the groups will start working with me, and those 4 kids will like, okay, let's learn how to preview, guys. You'll be amazed. You can never, ever peel something back far enough. There's always one kid in that room that needs it peeled down to like, this is how you tie your shoe, this is how you eat your sandwich. Like, they need it scaffolded at a lot of different levels. And then you can, you know, you can ability group, or you can do mixed groups, so you have like an awesome PQ4R person, or you can even do like, you know, like, hey, so-and-so is really good. Why don't we have them set the questions and we'll all look for the questions together. There's a lot of ways you can play with it. I mean, this is something new for me this year, so I'm still learning how I want to do it. But I'm a believer. I pick 3 or 4 strategies a year, and I do them 30 to 40 times in a year. I'm not throwing something new at a kid every week. It's like, let's do this, this, and this over and over again until you're a master of it, and you move along to sophomore year and initiates his problem.
That connection is huge.
Yeah.
That connection.
Yeah.
Because I tried to get my students to do, I did, and it's an easy one to come up with.
The connection box is huge, and it's also their cop out. It's their way to throw the iron in, or to throw the wrench in the machine and say like, I can't. This is no connection. And you have to show them like a connection is as simple as like, do you read? Yes. Well, this article is about reading. It applies to you. Like that simple. Like because they will fight you until. I mean, I'll have kids. So like, I'll give a kid like, what do you like? I like soccer. Okay, here's an article about soccer. Read it. How's the connection? There's no connection. It's like, you just told me you like soccer. Like, and they will look at you like a straight face and like be like, nope, doesn't apply to my life. It's like, it's hard, but like I kind of think Joe was talking about that poem. Until you make some kind of connection to your life, like there's nowhere to go until you have like, oh, this applies. Like the Mockingbird we're reading right now, right? Like that's not a book about scouts. It's a book about you. If you were a scout, what would you do in these crazy situations? Anybody else?
Interested to hear how the discussion questions develop, you know, to get the students to take like this, you know, the responsibility themselves for leading each other. It would be, I think over time, as you say, if you do this over and over,
well, you know. What they like about this is you can sell them on the fact that like, listen guys, if you create the discussion question and I use yours, you know the answer. Class just got easier for you. Like I have them made their own quiz questions sometimes. I'm like, if I pick one of your quiz questions on the quiz, you know the answer. So like it's in your behest to like do this well. And they buy in of like, oh wait, if I work hard now, it makes my life easier in the future. Which is kind of what this is. Like, because, you know, no, even like my kids are high school, they shouldn't have to do this, but some of them do. But this process will become innate over time. Like you said, like you reread, like you've learned to do it.
I'm thinking even like at the university level, like my experience with college kids is they read the chapter, they get like the general gist, but then they come to class and they can't talk about anything because they haven't thought about it.
Yeah.
So asking them,
what do you want from the article?
But asking them to complete something like this, not even if they had to turn it in, but it forces them, and it's easy, actually, you know, honesty, it's easier than me coming up with 5 or 6 questions and asking them specific questions. Because then those are my questions.
Well,
And then that's what I was just, and that's about me and what I wanna get out of it.
Well, and as the
That's
professor, it'll make your
yeah.
discussions better, because now you've got 30 kids that made up their own ideas versus 30 kids that answered your 5 questions.
Exactly.
So it's, you know, they need a purpose. And like, I never in college sat down with a book and said, like, what do I want from this?
Never.
But now that I've done this, it's like, well, crap, like, what do I want to get out of this? And it's like, I have purpose when I read now more than I ever did before. So I don't know, I think it's really, I think there's a lot of potential to it. Like I said, I'm still rolling it out myself.
And you found some mine?
I found it online, it was hackneyed, it was someone
Sure.
put something on there, and I said, like, there's something to this, like, and I started playing with it. I created this whole thing from scratch, I changed around some of the terminology, and I kind of applied it to a strategy last semester and made it my own, and I encourage you, like, don't use mine, like, change it, make it your own, play with it.
So can I just say this one thing? So I'm saying this because Robbie's here too. I think that you should expand this presentation and you should submit a proposal for the next year's conference by the Illinois Reading Council, and I think teachers would flock to this.
Well, I appreciate it, thank you.
I really
And
do.
those proposals are due April 1st, so you better.
Oh, come on.
But I think you've got half of it done. You've got all this all done. I really, and your enthusiasm and all that.
Post this online.
Yeah, and I'd love to see some of your student, like, how did students
Yeah.
complete this? Like, I think that would be really.
Well, next
Yeah.
year it'll be done from the first week of school to the whole, so I'll have a whole year of like, I'll
I think you should present, what do you think?
I think you show kids like the first day, like this is day 1, this is your day 180, like look where you were, look where you are now. Even with the same article, like do this day 1 and then do this article last day of school. So yeah, this is still a work in progress, but any feedback would be really appreciated, and if you want it, just put your email on the feedback form and I'll get it to you. And my email, if anyone wants it, is WLRiley@cps.edu. I put it on the sheet, so I'm always looking for feedback and ideas.
We've seen this before. I have, under looking for the RAF strategies, you know, how to, but I've seen it as SQ4R for survey.
Or SQ3.
It's the same
Okay.
thing.
Yeah.
So,
But it's different than SQ3.
and this,
I think so too.
this is
Yeah, I think
phenomenal.
so.
You're a
Very
graphic
good.
organizer. It could go for any level. And you buy in, you get the kids to buy in with what they want to go.
Well, it's nice to know I'm not crazy. Other people see this as possibly beneficial because it makes sense to me, like, as a teacher. Like, I would have liked this in high school. You know, it's not like just, oh, do this because I said so. Like, this, it helps, I think.
I would like this in graduate school for myself. You know, when you're reading 82 articles a week.
I know, you're right. It's been there, done that, done that.
Let's do it, right?
Yeah, I know.
Kind of helps you keep your thinking
Thank God
straight.
Dr. God is going.
All right, if that's everyone's
10 books.
feedback, I appreciate it, and
Thank you.
I will get you the stuff, your emails on the top.
Thank you.
Awesome, thank you, ladies.
Okay, here's.
Thank you for all me. Yeah, right. Where's all the documentation? What's going on?
Like there's one in the main section. What is this?
Seriously?
It's okay.
Got my feedback from Mark.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
ma'am. You can stop the video, Jordan.